Hello, welcome to the program Għidli Storja, Tell Me a Story from the National Literacy Agency. Today we are in lesson 6. By the time we finish this lesson and the activities in lesson 6, we will be able to identify what makes a story, and we will create a story in a group. Today's story is The Old Man Buried in a Cave. It is a Maltese legend. One day there was a king, and in his kingdom people lived for a very long time. They lived to be 100 and even more than 100 years old. One day the king declared that he wanted all the elderly, the 100-year-old and the ones who were older, to be taken to the caves, buried there and left to die. They had to do that. It was a law. If they didn't do that, they were beheaded. There was this young man who loved his father so much. He was an only son, and his mother had died already. The old man was very wise, and he told his son, "Son, I know you have to take me to the caves and leave me there to die, but I don't want you to worry. I have lived my 100 years. You are still so very young in your prime years. It's better to take me to the caves than to have the king behead you." So the next day they went to the caves, but the son had a brilliant idea. He thought of digging a hole on top of the cave so air and light could go in. He even thought of leaving a hole at the very bottom of the cave where he could push some food and drink for his father, and in that way he would be keeping him alive. Things were going well. Every morning the son took his herd grazing there near the caves, and he used to talk to his father. He milked his goats, and he left some milk for his father. He even took some goat cheese and some bread. And every day he made the same visit. But one day the king declared a new law, and he said that he didn't want anyone to work his field before they worked the king's fields. That was a problem, because the king had many, many fields. He had lots and lots of land. So it would have been impossible for people to work their own land after working for the king. The young man was worried, and the next day he ran to his father and he told him, Dad, tell me, my son, the king has declared a new law. We can't work our fields before we finish working in his fields. That's not going to leave enough time for me to work the fields all alone." "Don't worry, my son," said the father. "Buy 2 bulls and they will help you with the fields. You can work in one field, while the bulls will plough the other 2 fields, and you can get double the work done." "Oh, thank you, Dad." And the young man bought himself 2 bulls to help him in the field. It was time when the wheat was growing. The king's wheat was high, and the young man's wheat was just as high. And the king heard about this, and he wasn't happy at all. So he sent for the young man, and he asked him, "How come your wheat is yielding as high as mine?" And the young man was very honest. He said that he bought 2 bulls, and with their help he was getting double the work done. He was working in the moonlight rather than during the day. Thought the king. This is a wise young man. I need to test him more. So he gave the young man a challenge. And he said, "Well, you seem to be wise enough. Tomorrow, I want you to come to this palace. I want you to be dressed and naked at the same time. So you will be wearing clothes, but not wearing clothes." Everybody was scratching his head. Oh dear, what a task. But the young man, as usual, he ran to the caves and he went to his father. "Dad? Dad, are you okay in there?" "Yes, my son, yes." "How was your day?" "Oh, Dad, the king has sent for me. He's very angry because the wheat is as high as growing as tall as his. And he gave me a challenge today. He wants me to go to the palace tomorrow, wearing clothes but not wearing clothes. How can I ever do that, Dad?" "Don't worry, my son," said the father. He was a very wise man. He said, "Tomorrow, all you have to do is take a fishing net. Remove your clothes, but just keep a piece of cloth around yourself. Just put the net over, and like that, you're wearing clothes, but you're not wearing clothes." "Oh, thank you, Dad, thank you." And he slept all night, and in the morning he did exactly what his father told him. He put a fishing net on top of him, and he put a piece of cloth around him. He was wearing clothes, but he was not wearing clothes. And as he went inside the palace, all the king's men began to laugh and laugh. It was so funny, but it was such a good idea. Thought the king. "You are a wise man indeed, but I will give you another challenge. Tomorrow, I want you to come to this palace. I want you to wear shoes, but I want you to be barefooted." Again, everybody was scratching his head. Wearing shoes, barefooted. How can you wear shoes and be barefooted? So the young man, as usual, he went to the cave. He went to his father. "Dad, Dad, another challenge for me." "Tell me, my son, what is it this time?" "I have to appear in front of the king tomorrow, Dad. I have to be wearing shoes, but I have to be barefooted. How can I do that?" "Oh, my son, that is very simple. Take one pair of old shoes, remove the soles, and walk to the palace. You are still wearing your shoes, but you are barefooted, because there are no soles on your shoes." And the young man walked to the palace, and when the king saw him wearing his shoes, he laughed. "Ha ha 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 ha! Not this time, not this time. You're wearing shoes." And the young man was very humble. "Your Highness, is it okay if I put my foot up?" "Yes, yes, do so." And the man lifted his foot. There were no soles on his shoes, and he was barefooted. And how the people of the palace laughed. The king was getting a little bit annoyed, and he gave the young man the third challenge. And he said, "Tomorrow you have to come in here riding a donkey, but I want you walking. You're riding a donkey and you're walking at the same time." Everybody again was scratching his head and thinking, riding a donkey, walking, how can I do two things at the same time? And what did he do? He went to the caves and he asked his father, Dad, are you okay in there?" "Yes, my son, yes. The king has given me another challenge. He wants me to ride the donkey and he wants me to walk at the same time. How can I do that, Dad?" "Don't worry, my son. You are a very tall young man. No problem. Go and buy yourself the smallest donkey ever. Ride the donkey and make sure that your feet are still touching the ground. You'll be riding, but you'll be walking at the same time." And that is what the young man did. And he walked into the palace, riding the donkey, but his feet were on the ground, and he was walking at the same time. All the people laughed. They burst laughing. Some were even crying. They laughed so much. This time, the king had to laugh too. And he talked to the young man and he said, "Young man, you are very, very wise, and I am very happy for you. Where did you get all this wisdom from?" And the young man was honest, and he told him, "I got this wisdom from my father." "Oh, bring your father to me. We need people like your father. Bring your father to me. I need to talk to him." "My father is dead. My father should be dead. He was condemned to the caves because my father is 100 years old," said the young man. "So how come he's still alive? Dead? Is he dead? What are you saying, young man?" And he told him the truth. He told him that he left a hole at the top of the cave so air and light could go in. He even told him that he left a hole at the bottom of the cave so he could push food inside the cave, and that is how he kept his father alive. Well, he did obey the king's orders. He did put his father in a cave. The king never said, "Don't put holes here or there." It didn't even come to his mind. So he changed the rules, and the king declared, "From today, no man should die. No elderly should be taken to the caves to be condemned. We need the old people. Old people are wise. We need their wisdom. Go, young man, go and bring your father to me. I need to congratulate him. And that is the end of the story. So, what you have to do now is think. What did you like best in this story? Which part of the story did you like best and why? If you had been telling the story, would you have changed anything? Would you add anything to the story? Give us feedback. Activity 2. Activity 2 is called pairs. By the time we finish this activity, you will be able to make up a story out of sentences using a verb and a noun. So the teacher is going to split the class in two. Some of you are going to have yellow paper for a verb, and some of you are going to have green paper for a noun. Let us remind ourselves what a verb is. What is a verb? The verbs are the doing things. What am I doing? I am explaining. So the verb is explain. What are you doing? You are listening. So the verb is listen. Nouns. The nouns are the places, people, animals, things, anything that you can see and touch. I'm sure you knew all this, but it was just a gentle reminder. So, if you have a yellow paper, that means you're a verb. You're going to write a verb. If you have a green, you're going to write a noun. So, take 2 minutes to write a noun or a verb. You can write it on the paper the teacher will give you. Write it. And then, when you write your word, you go and find somebody who has a verb or somebody who has a noun. And you bring your noun and your verb together as a pair. That is why the activity is called pairs. Maybe as a verb, I would like to use whisper. My verb is whisper. And if I had to think of a noun, I would think of bridge. So, if you go back to the previous activities and you think of who is in your story, if not who, maybe what, maybe it is an object, but who or what? Where did all this happen? What happened? Always think of these, because they will help you make stories. So the verb whisper and the noun bridge. Once there was a bridge over the pond, and the bridge whispered secrets to the ducks. That is a story already. We know what? There was a bridge. We know where? Over a pond, and there were ducks. And we know what the bridge did. It whispered. If I want to make it more interesting, whispered what? The bridge whispered secrets to the ducks. And what did the ducks do? The ducks quacked, 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 quacked all the secrets away. And that is how people began writing stories. You see, I brought the verb and the noun together. Remember the previous activities: who, where, what. And you can expand your sentences even longer to make a very short story. So good luck with that. The third activity is telling a story word by word. By the time we finish this activity, you will be able to make up and tell a story using connectives. I have many connectives here. I can't show them to you all, but they will be on our page so you can see and choose anything you like. In the meantime, I just put some here to take an example of what the activity should be like. If it is a small group, you can sit down in a circle, and in that way you can contribute to more than one sentence, always using one of the connectives. And you have to think of the story together. What would help you is if you go back to the previous activities. Who is in your story? Where did the story take place? What happened? And that would help you get started for sure. Then maybe there were problems and setbacks, but maybe there was a helper too. And then you think of a solution and the conclusion. So the teacher should be the first one to pick any one of these. At the beginning of the story, we usually go with one day or maybe once upon a time. I'm going to use once upon a time. Every one you use, every connective you use, you remove, so it will not be repeated. So, once upon a time, there was a little girl walking in the forest. She saw a cottage, and since the door was open, she walked inside. As soon as she was in, she found food on the table and ate all the food. A moment later, so I'll remove it. A moment later, she saw a small chair, sat down on the chair and unfortunately, she broke it. Later, she went upstairs and slept in a very small bed. Meanwhile, some bears walked in the cottage. They found the food was eaten, the chair was broken, so they went upstairs and saw that a girl was sleeping in the bed, in the small bed. At that moment, the girl woke up. Therefore, she ran away and never went back to the forest. So I reused a story. I made it simpler with few words just to give you an example of how to use the connectives. And never once did I say, and then. Why? Because all these connectives helped me to get the story flowing. And you will get this by practice. The more you do it, the better you become at making up stories. Finally, this is the end of Activity 3 and the end of Lesson 6. I do hope that you are finding these lessons very useful, that you are enjoying the activities, and I would like you to go back to every activity, because now you need to bring them together for you to be able to make up your own stories. Thank you very much for joining us. Until the next time, which will be the 7th lesson.